Hello everyone. My name is Prashant Singh. I'm working as a solution architect for one of the MNCs. I got chance to assist many companies in their BizTalk to AIS migration journey. I'll be today, and that is the topic of today's discussion as well. I'll be talking about why to migrate, BizTalk to AIS mapping, and the learnings from the field. So hope this topic helps in your journey as well. So the very first question which we to ask is why to migrate and what are the benefits of migration? So because Azure Integration Services is conceived in um, cloud era, and therefore it's super feature loaded. The first thing is the REST APIs based integration, and that is one feature where you can design your systems as APIs and all that, and as well as you can consume your partner or consume other applications. It allows you, provides you a highly scalable cloud infra. It also provides you with modern authentication and enhanced security features, uh, and ease of integration with other cloud native services like APIM, WAF, Defender, Sentinel, or ADF, and so on. So the ease of integration with all other Azure services is too much. Uh, it also allows you consumption-based pricing. So therefore, you pay for what you consume. The single tenant pricings are extremely affordable, and that also helps a lot. Uh, because the pricing is so convenient, apart from that, it is almost a no code, low code experience for developers. Most of the development you can even do via Azure portal, right? So it allows you to experiment quickly, fail fast, fail cheap, and succeed big. So that is the mantra for AIS. It allows you for SaaS connectivity, quick integration with SaaS companies, whether it is any third-party systems with your ITIL or any other third-party companies that lot many connectors are there, and therefore that SaaS integration is very fast. Um, the last but not the least, you because AIS is spawning over 60 plus announced regions. Therefore, you can choose to deploy the services as closer to your customers as possible, and therefore all these benefits in all provides a very good reason for you to migrate to AIS. So in general, whenever we talk about integration, there are some key things which are present in all the integrations. You generally have some workflows where you talk about the first I need to do this, then this, and then there is a workflow which needs to be followed. Then you have some events, right, where if this happens, then another thing should be followed by that. You have some ETL sort of scenarios where you extract data, transform it, and finally load into some other systems. Then you have some APIs which either you are consuming from your partners, or you are exposing yourself as an API, right? And finally, you have some messages which some information which needs to be transferred from one system to another system, and all this we'll see how AIS solves it. So in case of AIS, the workflows are part of logic apps. So whenever you want to design or automate a system where you can think of a workflow system, if this happens, then these things should be followed. So that is where you can should go for logic apps. Event create is something where whenever you talk about generating events. So for example, some message came into a blob service, or maybe a virtual machine is turned on or off, or any event which you can think of. If you want to have some event driven solution, in that case you should choose event grid. Data factory or synapse should be chosen if you have a massive size which is bigger size, and you want to extract data from multiple systems, transform it, and load it to a system. It is kind of a replacement of not replacement in SSIS. Cloud counterpart is ADF. API management, as we all know, you will be able to publish your APIs or consume other APIs. It also allows you a developer portal through which your customers can come and try that on and You can expose it your legacy APIs with OAuth 2.0 or other modern security features and all that. Azure Function is where if you want to write your own some custom code or some serverless APIs, so Azure Function is the place to be. So what to choose when is also a very, very critical thing which you should decide here, whether you should go for logic apps or ADF or what. Uh, these are the reasons why you should choose which technology. As we are talking about BizTalk to AIS migration, we should also talk about what are the key features which are there in BizTalk. It definitely has a messaging system where we are publishing something into message box and then subscribing on the basis of either content or context, right? You have some workflows or orchestration services which are there in orchestrations. Similarly, we use BREs for rule-based operations. You use BAM for business activity monitoring or tracking some business related information. Similarly, you use HAT or health and activity tracking for overall logging and tracking of your messages. And SSO is something which is used for security purposes where you want to save some encrypted information and all that, right? So we use single sign-on for that. So we will try to see how these services or things are mapped into AIS. And here I'm talking about what are the BizTalk capabilities and how they can be mapped into Azure integration services. So the moment you talk about message routing, where you are publishing and subscribing messages, in that case, service bus or the event grid, if you want to go for event-based things like a file is dropped into a file location or SFTP based. So in that case, event-based, event-driven mechanism will be there, and there that is where we have to use event grid or service bus in case of you want topics or subscriptions, publish and subscribe sort of architecture, right? Uh, if you have BizTalk maps and you're using it, so you can keep it into integration account and use them as is. So there, that is where we are talking about the reusability component. In case of Logic Apps standards, now we don't even need integration account. You can, it can be part of your Logic Apps itself artifacts, and there you can directly use all your BizTalk maps. In case of your pipelines, the inbuilt pipelines, we might have to write Azure functions for that. However, if you have some DLLs, so like custom pipelines or something, that can be not as is reused, but can be the logic can be reused by putting it into Azure functions or something. Similarly, if you talk about adapters, which allows you to connect to different systems like SQL, SAP, and so on. So in that case, we in Logic Apps we have too many connectors for that, and uh, which allows you to connect to any system, any third-party system, and fetch or perform operations to that particular system. So we have connectors for that. For workflow, in BizTalk we used to have orchestration. So same workflow design or definition can be rewritten in Logic Apps. For BRE, AIS has recently launched a BRE operation means the feature, which can be, although it is in preview, but definitely you guys can look into it. If that doesn't suffice, we can also write Azure functions which can be using the app config of AIS or the app config in general, right? For BAM, uh, uh, by default there are logic apps or function app, they all have their own tracking capabilities where the messages are tracked along with the body if all those features are there. So by default they allows you for a very what do you say, helpful tracking information. But you can also go ahead and develop your own integration logging, end-to-end logging framework, which I'll be talking in one of our slides. uh, the APIs, we'll be using API management for exposing ourselves as a service or consuming others. So that is extremely good product which is available. What are the learnings from this from the field? So first thing which we should know is BizTalk is not at all equals to Logic Apps. In case of BizTalk, there was just one product where which was kind of sufficing all our needs. However, in case of Logic Apps, we'll have to choose which product solves our needs. So whether we should go for logic apps or ADF, we'll have to decide. Similarly, there are so many options for queue. Should you go for service bus, or you should go for a storage account queue? We'll have to explore them all and choose what best fits our solution, right? Similarly, whenever you are designing, because we are getting chance to redesign or re-architect our solutions, so the approach should be very, very different. Our mindset should be cloud first mindset. And there are multiple uh, for example, you should design for failure. So you should think about async instead of synchronous solutions. You should think about redundancy. How, if even if your one node or two node goes, how the other node should be able to take the load and process it. What about the failure mechanism? What about the recovery? You should think about RTO and RPO and all that. So design for failure and design for scalability. In that case, your application should be automatically scalable, vertically or horizontally, without any design change or manual interventions. Similarly, design automate your managements using IICs, CI/CDs, or ARM templates. You should be able to build self-healing mechanism in your application. You should have proactive monitoring and alerting mechanism, so that whenever something goes wrong, you are proactively informed about it, so that your supporting can take actions on the basis of that. You should think security should be ingrained in your design. You should think about RBAC for giving permissions. You should think about encryption, and so on. For example, instead of using SQL connection string, you should think about how I can give permissions to RBAC. How can we use app registrations and all that? Uh, Cloud native patterns like serverless or event driven services or containerization microservices. So these are the things you should be looking at. uh, Design for visibility, because the data is the new oil today. So you should design a system so that you should have a mechanism to recognize pattern, which are helpful in your business scenarios, as well as it should help you in issue detection and proactive monitoring. We should also look for well-architected framework, which is the Microsoft suggested pillars, which is talking about reliability, security, cost optimization, or operational excellence and performance efficiency, right? So you should be thinking about all these things, because you are getting chance to redesign or redevelop your system. Automated testing is a must. You should think how you can, using Azure DevOps, you can automate your testing functional load. So every time a developer checks in the code is thoroughly tested. So these things are a must to have in any system which you are designing. There are a known limitation of each and every product, that is with respect to the size or number of messages, or with respect to the time. There and you should These things are limitations are changing every day. So you should review the known limitations and design your systems as per that. Uh, there are few scenarios which definitely you should kind of in those scenarios you should redesign. For example, a low latency scenarios. If you want a low latency scenarios, in that case you should think about redesigning. Or if you are using large messages, in that case you should definitely think about redesigning and re-optimizing high throughput and resumability also. So let's say, after if something goes wrong, you should be able to resume. So for example, if you are using ESB in on-prem system, we had that capability of resuming if something goes wrong. So that things you'll have to redesign here, because in some or the other way. In short, the planning is the key. The first thing you should think about is, you'll have to plan it end to end. So first thing is, what sort of migration strategy are you going to choose? Whether it will be a lift and shift, where the benefits are least, but so is the risk, or are you going for migration or redesign into completely, right? So that is the first thing which you should think. What are the components which can be used? For example, your maps can be reused, your libraries can be reused. Similarly, think of what things can be be reused and what things needs to be redesigned completely. Divide and conquer. So on the basis of your complex applications complexity or criticality or the value it brings, divide the applications into multiple boxes, and then do a phased migration. uh, uh, Divide your teams of developers who are going to help, or the architects and managers, because in the every process, for example, your testers should be ready so that they are able to test the application, right? And the best is to go for iterative approach, where you start small, do some POCs, and validate if everything goes good, then go for phased manner what do you say, migration. The last but not least, whenever you're going for designing your system, first thing is you should build a landing zone before even moving your first application. So end-to-end logging and monitoring framework is a must, because every component, whether it is logic apps, function app, or anything, they have their own monitoring capabilities, but your message flows from multiple systems. There will be multiple scenarios in which your message flows from logic apps to function app to APIM and so on. And there should be a mechanism there where where you should be able to trace it end to end from start to end using some or the other way. And that is where you should design your own custom end-to-end logging and monitoring framework. I'll be talking about one in some time. You should be using DevOps for the whole process. Simple boards will help you in the planning, where you're keeping your source code, Git, and all that, the pipelines for doing the CI/CD, or even running your test cases, right? So DevOps is a big help for sure. You should, as I talked about security, you should be ingrained in your design. You should think about RBACs, authentication and authorizations and all that. Data at rest, how do you secure that? So you should be thinking about that. Exception handling and error handling scenarios, and how you're going to alert, create a service now ticket, or any other ITIL ticket, so that your service team is informed to take actions, and so on. And finally, the testing. Plan for testing. Plan how you are going to do unit testing, functional testing, or load testing, because that is very, very important. Because it's very much different from BizTalk is very much different from your AIS environment. Therefore, testing is a must thing. Leverage Logic Apps testing test framework. It is extremely helpful. Write your own test cases for function apps or logic apps. Uh, uh, and in every run, this should be validated every time a developer is checking in the code. Those test cases should get executed. This is the framework which I was talking about, end-to-end logging framework, and you can read about it more in my blog. So in this framework, what we try to do is we have created event. We have categorized things as event producers, which will be generating events, logic apps, your function app, or web applications. These are the events which will be generating your events. All these events are getting into event hubs, because it allows millions of records to come inside and then publish to the subscriber. So therefore, we are using event hubs here. And either your logic apps event producer should be directly able to push events into event hub, or via function apps, or any class libraries, they can push messages into event hub. And then we'll have to design some event consumer. In our case, we designed a function app which will be picking all these events from event hub and then pushing it into either Azure monitor, or a SQL server table, or anywhere. And so therefore you will have a track of all the information, which is all the events which are coming, and this can be used for logging purposes, or tracing purposes, or even alerting purposes. And on the basis of these SQL tables, or log analytics tables, we can go ahead and create our own workbooks, or maybe write fancy web pages also. And this will be one of the best thing which you have done for your AI solution, because in using this, you will have there is one place where you can look by some correlation ID or tracking ID. You will be able to track the whole journey of this message end to end. Yeah. So that brings me to the end of this presentation. So thanks a lot for being till here. You can contact me with any of these mediums. You can contact me via LinkedIn, mail to me, or follow my blog. Thanks a lot. Have a good day, Ed.